So welcome to this SVT talk, Dharma talk. And today we'll be looking at the importance of a relationship to views and opinions. And before we start, let's just start with a Namo Tassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. So today we're going to be looking principally at a short sutta in the Sutta Nipata. It's in the fourth chapter, the chapter of the eights, and it's sutta number 5. And it's called the Paramaṭṭhaka Sutta, or the sutta about perfection. So here, what we see is a discussion about the nature of views. The person abiding by a certain dogmatic view. And a dogmatic view has that characteristic of being something which is felt to be absolutely right and all other things are wrong. Considering it the highest in the world, claims this is the most excellent and disparages other views different from that as inferior. As a result, this person is not free from disputes. Clearly, anyone else having the same opinion about their views is going to be in direct dispute with this first person. When they see personal advantages from the things that they have seen, heard, or recognized, or from rule or right, they cling passionately to that alone and see everything else as inferior. So we have this personal dimension. We're attached to our views because they seem to benefit us in some way. The experts say that it is a bond to depend on what one associates with and to see everything else as inferior. So here, the experts, perhaps the wise in the sense that they have a broader perspective, they see there's a real limitation to only holding on to a particular view. Therefore, the disciplined one should not trust in things seen, heard, or felt, or in rites or rituals. So here we have, undermining, this comment is undermining the very basis of those original opinions. So those original opinions are, if we look back at that second verse, when you see these personal advantages from the things that you've seen, heard, cognized, or from rite or ritual or rules, this is where we cling passionately to these views. And what the experts are saying, the disciplined ones are saying, is that do not trust things. Do not place your trust in things seen, heard, felt, or in rules and rites. A disciplined person does not engender dogmatic views, does not support those in the world either by knowledge or by rule and right. Therefore, they do not consider themselves superior, inferior, or equal. So we've got this very interesting concept here. And part of the things that sustains the concept of I am, or the conceit that I am, is this ability to compare, that I'm better than, less than, or equal to. And what this passage is saying is that as soon as we adopt opinions, dogmatic thoughts, we are automatically moving into that arena. The sage has abandoned the notion of self or ego and is free from clinging. They do not depend on knowledge. They do not take sides in the midst of controversy. They have no dogmatic views. So this is a very interesting part of the passage here, because we might think that as someone develops in their understanding and knowledge, that they would have more certainty about what they felt was truth and not truth. But here we must understand, I think, that what we're talking about is opinions. Views here are opinions. They are not based on something that's an observable truth. They are the ideas and opinions about things. And in other passages, in other suttas, we have this being brought out very clearly in the debate. So there's a lovely sutta which is working with Anathapindika, one of the main supporters of the Buddha. And he comes across a whole group of other wanderers who are busy debating. And they're having a noisy debate, and they see Anathapindika coming. And they say, oh, quieten down, because Anathapindika is arriving and we would like to question him. And they ask him, you know, what are the views that the Buddha holds? And he says, well, I can't know entirely what the views the Buddha holds. And he said, well, what views the monks who follow the Buddha have? And he says equally that I can't know entirely what those views are. So then they say, well, tell us what your views are. And he says, well, I'm very happy to do that, but first of all, tell me what your views are. And we can see here that these views are not things based on things that they've directly observed and understood, because the things that they're questioning are, the cosmos is finite, this is a view, or it's infinite, or the soul and the body are the same, or they're different, or that a Tathagata exists after death, or doesn't exist, or both exists and doesn't exist, or neither exists or doesn't exist. And it's interesting here that the phrase Tathagata, which we might call an enlightened one, this was a phrase which is not unique to the Buddha. It was considered, it was a word used for anyone who had, if you like, full knowledge, and many traditions would speculate what that was. So all of these different views are not things that can be directly observed, they are opinions. And when Anathapindika had listened to this, he said, well, if you hold any opinion and say only this is true, anything otherwise is worthless, you know, this is the view I have, then he says, well, this view arises by your own inappropriate attention or independence on the words of another person. This view has been brought into being, is fabricated, willed, dependently originated. And whatever has been brought into being, fabricated, willed, dependently originated, that is inconstant. Whatever is inconstant is dukkha. So then, you know, if you adhere to this, then you adhere to the very dukkha, and you submit yourself to that dukkha. So what Anathapindika is pointing out here is that simply holding on to views and opinions doesn't take us any further forward. So if we return here to, so this comes from Anguttara Nikaya 1093, this discussion with Anathapindika. And, you know, Anathapindika goes to the Buddha and the Buddha praises him. And he says, you know, if you need to challenge the wanderers of other sects with the Dharma, then do it in the way that Anathapindika has done. So, the Buddha's very clear here that holding on to opinions is not what he's teaching. So then we go back to the Sutta Nipata, and here we say, for those that, where there is no desire to strive for this or that, in this world or the next, they have ceased to associate with dogmas, for they no longer require the solace that dogmas offer. So here's an insight into why do these opinions actually generate and actually are sustained. And it's because we derive comfort from them. And we're reluctant to give up the things that give us a sense of comfort or place or perspective. But the Buddha's very clear about this. To the sage, there is not the slightest prejudiced view with regard to things seen, heard, or felt. So, the sage is looking, observing in an unfiltered way, simply seeing things as they are, not through the filter of a particular view or perception. How can anyone in the world characterize by thought such a pure one who does not dogmatically grasp any views? So, what we see here is that we are trying to, with our practice, move away from constantly interpreting what we see in terms of our own concepts and trying to move back into this clear-sightedness, which simply see things as they are. And there's another reference that I just want to allude to in a minute, which explores what that actually means. They neither form any particular dogma nor prefer anything. Just repeat that. They neither form any particular dogma. In other words, any particular view that this is right and something else is wrong. Nor do they prefer anything. And I'm reminded here of a saying from Ajahn Chah, and I'm sure maybe many other teachers have also expressed this, that life is simple if you don't have preferences. As soon as we have preferences, we're trying to condition our experience to be the way we want it to be. And Bhante Viramsī was very clear. As soon as we start to try and do that, we've moved out of the meditation. Our task in the meditation is simply to observe the way things are. So they neither form any particular dogma nor prefer anything. Any preferences. Dogmatic views are not esteemed by them. The Brahmin is not led by rule and right. Thus, the steadfast one has gone to the further shore, nevermore to return. So if we look at the Majjhima Nikaya 74, the Dīghanakha Sutta, the Buddha's come to meet a wanderer, Dīghanakha. this wanderer has come and is expressing particular views. And he says, Master Gautama, excuse me a moment. It says, Master Gautama, my doctrine and view is this: nothing is acceptable to me. And of course, the Buddha says, this view of yours, nothing is acceptable to me. Is this not at least a view that's acceptable to you? So isn't it automatically a contradiction? But Dīghanakha just doesn't accept that argument, and he just says, no, nothing is acceptable to me. So then the Buddha says, well, Akavasena, there are plenty in the world who would say, it too would be the same, it too would be the same. Yet they do not abandon that view, and they take up still some other view. Those are few in the world who say, it too would be the same, it too would be the same. And who abandon that view do not take up some other view. So here we have a statement that it doesn't really matter what view you have, you will always find someone who has a separate or a different view. So there are recluses and Brahmins, he says, where everything is have the view that everything is acceptable to me. And therefore they would be in dispute with people who said nothing is acceptable to me. Now, when we have everything is acceptable to me, well, this, the Buddha says, this is close to her lust, close to bondage, close to delighting, close to holding, close to clinging. And those recluses and Brahmins who have the view nothing is acceptable to me are close to non-lust, close to non-bondage, close to non-delighting, close to non-holding, close to non-clinging. And Dīghanakha says, well, if you take that view, then you're commending my point of view. And he says, well, a wise man holding the view that everything is acceptable to me would consider thus: if I obstinately adhere to my views, everything is acceptable to me, and only this is true, anything else is wrong, then I will clash with the other people who either hold the view nothing is acceptable to me, or hold the view something is acceptable to me and something is not acceptable to me. And so dispute by holding views is inevitable. So, having taken this view, the Buddha says, well, what would be an appropriate response to this? And he says, well, this body is made of material form, consisting of the four great elements, procreated by mother and father and built up out of boiled rice and porridge, is subject to impermanence, to being worn down and rubbed away, to dissolution and disintegration. It should be regarded as impermanent, as suffering, as a disease, as a tumor, as a dart, as a calamity, as an infliction, as alien, as disintegrating, as void, as not self. When one regards this body thus, one abandons desire for the body, affection for the body, subservience to the body. We should also reflect on the three kinds of feelings: pleasant feeling, painful feeling, and neither pleasant nor painful feeling. On the occasion when one feels a pleasant feeling, one does not feel a painful feeling, or a neither painful or pleasant feeling. On occasion one feels a pleasant feeling, on that occasion one only feels a painful feeling. One does not feel a pleasant feeling, or neither painful or pleasant feeling. On the occasion one feels a neither painful nor pleasant feeling, one does not feel pleasant feeling or painful feeling. On that occasion one feels only neither painful nor pleasant feeling. Pleasant feeling is impermanent, conditioned, dependently arisen, subject to destruction, vanishing, fading away, and ceasing. The same for painful feeling, and the same for neither painful nor pleasant feeling. When we observe things in this way, the mind becomes disenchanted, and with disenchantment, we become dispassionate. And through dispassion, the mind is liberated. A bhikkhu whose mind is liberated sides with none and disputes with none. They employ the speech currently used in the world without adhering to it. So we're just using common parlance about, what is it you observe? Observe this. It's not that you're holding this view. It's just that this has been an observable reality that has been seen. So the Buddha says, rather than hold fixed views, come back and explain what it is that you understand from observation, that the other person can also understand from observation. Now, on that occasion, the Venerable Sariputta was standing behind the Blessed One, fanning him. Then he thought, the Blessed One indeed speaks to us of the abandoning of these things through direct knowledge. Sublime One indeed speaks to us of relinquishing of these things through direct knowledge. As the Venerable Sariputta considered this, through not clinging, his mind was liberated from the taints. So, by simply listening to this description of the nature of views and how to work with the nature of views, Sariputta, from his practice, the development of his practice, became enlightened. So this is why understanding our relationship to views is so important. Whenever we fall into the trap, and the Buddha described this as a comfort, the trap of views is a comfort. It's something that gives us a sense of security. So it's very attractive to have views. But also, he described the sage, the person who's practicing, as moving towards the position of having no views, no preferences, but simply to observe and understand from direct knowledge. As a consequence of this, Dīghanakha, the vision of the spotless vision of the Dharma arose. All that is subject to arising is subject to cessation. And the wanderer Dīghanakha saw the Dharma, attained the Dharma, understood the Dharma, fathomed the Dharma. He crossed over doubt, did away with perplexity, and gained intrepidity, and became independent of others in the teacher's dispensation. So he's no longer reliant on other people for his understanding. Then he said to the Blessed One, "Magnificent Master Gotama, magnificent Master Gotama. Master Gotama has made the Dharma clear in many ways, as though he were turning upright what has been overthrown, revealing what was hidden, showing the way to one who was lost, or holding up a lamp in the dark for those with eyesight to see forms. I go to Master Gotama for refuge, and to the Dharma and to the Sangha of the bhikkhus. From today, let Master Gotama remember me as a lay follower who has gone to him for refuge for life." And this simply by correcting the perspective on views and reiterating how important it is to experience directly from practice what exactly is going on. Okay, so that's covered what I would like to present in terms of views, but I'm very happy to field any comments or any questions.
Love you. Just before the Dhamma talk, I was listening to another Dhamma talk regarding the same topic, and it's really important because even the eightfold path starts with the view. So having a view or opinion or preference, as you said, is also a conditioned phenomenon, and if we try to change it, it makes us cause suffering. And I was just talking to someone who came to my home, and she was asking about my daughter, how is she? And I said, no, she's not being well. Every month she's getting some fever or something, or else is happening with her. And she started saying, no, God is such that he does all the good bad things to only to the good people. And I said, no, it's our karma or her karma that is causing our suffering. And she was like, no, it's our ancestors' karma that we are suffering now. I thought to myself that she is having wrong views, so it's better I don't go into her. She will understand when the conditions are right, and I just step back.
Yes, when we begin to tune into this, we see that so much of the invitation in daily life is to express a view, or look for support of a view, or to look for an explanation. And one of the things that the Buddha said is that what is the knowledge that we need? The knowledge we need is what we can directly observe. And when we allow ourselves to directly observe it, then we see, for instance, causality very clearly. We see the circumstances that allow other things to arise, how they persist. And when those environments change, then this changes as well. And when we begin to see causality with that sort of clarity, then we begin to appreciate anatta, this aspect of non-self, that these things we don't identify with, we don't take personally. So although we may have some karmic residue coming in, our responsibility is what we do with it right now. How do we work with this? Do we, because of unfortunate circumstances coming in, do we then propagate those into the future, or do we take care of them right now? And this is where I think the practice and the 6 R's that Bhante Varamsi described are so valuable, because the 6 R's, if you like, are the guardian of our future. If we work with the 6 R's, we're taking out this, if you let the karmic energy that is moving into the future in this instance. So everything we experience is up to this present is from past karma. But then we have the choice about how we relate to it as to whether we generate that further forward or whether we release from it at this point. Yes, there'll be other aspects of karma which will inform the next stage, but we're not propagating it further forward. And so one of the things that we can do to do that, the 6 R's, are about coming back into balance in the moment. And in that moment, we don't have a preference about the experience. We're simply moving into a place of acceptance that the experience is as it is. And one of the things that the Buddhists, one of the things that Bhante Varamsi said is that each moment's experience is the truth. It's the truth right now. And he would say there can be nothing wrong with the truth. It may not be the truth we want, but there can't be anything wrong with the truth because it's the reality in this moment. And so our responsibility is to have a relationship to this reality, not to try and change the reality. And it's in that wanting to change it that this expression of having a preference comes about. And the invitation here is not to have a preference. In other words, to cultivate acceptance around the present moment experience. Now, that doesn't mean that we're simply resigned to the future being out of our control. We're exerting control, or we're exercising control by choosing to respond to the present moment rather than simply react to it. And that's the control that we have. And if we can move into the next moment without taking something personally or expressing that through a preference, then we're taking out, if you like, this karmic energy of how we move into the next moment. So we're moving into the next moment from a place of balance rather than from a place of reaction. So it seems to me what you're describing with your daughter and how you've described being with your daughter in the past. This is how you embody what the way you reside with your experience and your daughter's experience as it unfolds from the present time into the next present time.
Yes, Hugh.
Hi, you.
Sachin is here.
It's good to see you giving the Dhamma talk. Just I would like to share a thing like I feel everyone is capable enough to walk on the path of Dhamma, but their past conditions or past karmic actions may be affecting as hindrance to walk on the path of Dhamma. Is it true?
Our present moment experience is a reflection of our past karma, and certainly. I think there's plenty of examples within the suttas of people who are karmically compromised, who nevertheless have found a way to come to receive the Buddha's teaching and to make it work. And so I think, we think of Angulimala, for instance, as a classic example of this. And Angulimala, with his past legacy, meant that as a monk, he received, a continuing legacy based on his past karma. But it didn't stop him understanding the teaching of the Buddha and applying it. He would still, he would still be received very poorly by villagers who remembered what he'd done, and there were times when sticks would be thrown at him, or he'd be beaten, or whatever. But it didn't mean that he wasn't able, and indeed he applied the teaching of the Buddha. So I think that's the message of inspiration, I think, that we should take forward, that there's always the possibility that at some moment the recognition of what the Buddha taught could penetrate. So I don't think anyone is irredeemably compromised. I think there is always potential. And I think that's something which I think is a very helpful and inspiring perspective to take.
Truly, truly, Hugh. And one more quote I would like to tell here, like in recent Dhamma talk given by Delson. I think you are also present. I think in that talk. Are you present at in that talk? Last Sunday there was a talk.
No, I wasn't here for that. Yeah.
In that, Delson quoted one thing like he was saying that everyone like maybe everyone which is having a belief, like someone will be having a belief in some system. That belief system actually will make them to finally walk on the path of Dhamma. I just understood about those things. Like let us say someone goes to temple in Indian culture. Someone goes to the temple, and by going and by having the belief of going into temple and continually having habitual tendency over it, over the period of time, that belief system is making into walking on the true path. And Delson quoted that having a belief is very good in one or another system. It will pave in a future to walk on the path of Dhamma.
What I think is very helpful
Yes.
is to have a belief in something that is outside us. Yeah, something
Truly.
Yeah. Because that's the initial perspective that we need to recognize that there's something that we don't understand. And
Truly.
something we need to work towards. And if we don't have that as a starting place, we have no inquiry. We have no curiosity.
Truly.
And it's that inquiry and that curiosity which is very important. And then it kind of depends on the individual in which direction that they pursue that inquiry and curiosity. But if it is a true level of inquiry and a true level of curiosity, then sooner or later it will be about observing about what is actually happening.
Truly.
Going on. And the Buddha said that it is clear-sightedness which brings about the understanding on the path. So belief in something other than ourselves, something outside ourselves, I think is a very important stepping stone. That there's a wider context than just the narrow context that we see and feel we understand for ourselves. So in that respect, I agree with what he said, that this is a prerequisite, if you like, to moving forward. And simple belief and simple faith can be a very powerful thing.
Truly. And last Sunday, I would like to share one experience.
Please.
Last Sunday, we have attended Dhamma talk of Ajantan of Thailand. In that, we have asked one question regarding, like our daughter is disabled and she's bedridden. How can we help to walk in the path of Dhamma? We asked the question. What he said was like what Bante was, what Ajan said was like, because of the past karmic action of our parents, like myself and Sindhu and Sachi, this is the condition which may have occurred. And for the benefit in the walking on the path of Dhamma, at least we need to maintain 5 precepts to her, if possible. And it is possible, like our daughter maintains, we assume that our daughter maintains precepts. Why? Because she cannot speak. She's always bedridden. Indirectly, she is following the 5 precepts. And what Ajan was advising, like whenever you give a dana, to any monastery or for any robes, then in the offering, you should convey that the some of the portion of the offering is being dedicated to Sachi, which will help her in future lives. Just I would like to, I have shared this thing for the benefit of all.
I think that's an interesting perspective, and that what I would say is that the Buddha always counseled that trying to understand the mechanism of karma was one of the imponderables, and that if we tried to unpick cause and effect, it would drive us mad. And so what I would add would be that one of the things that you and Sindhu can graciously give your daughter,
Yes,
the way that you inhabit the Dharma yourself. Because you know when you're present with someone who's taking the teaching to heart for themselves, they have a different quality, they have a different vibration, they have a different presence. And so you're faced with very challenging circumstances, many times. How do you bring yourself back into balance when you face that? How do you allow yourself to come back, re-find the sort of sense of spacious awareness, so that you can integrate and interact with your daughter from a place which isn't about liking or disliking or sadness or happiness, that brings a sense of balance to it. Because and as Sindhu has often expressed, your daughter has taught you many things.
yes, truly. Truly.
Absolutely. And so your daughter is a blessing. But there will always be challenges. There will always be challenges. And the reverse of that blessing is, how do you respond to those challenges? How do you apply the teaching that you've understood and learned to bring you into that place of gratitude, even when you're having to deal things and work with things that are really challenging? But not only that, but how do you deal with it when you can't be like that? Can you forgive yourself? Can you come back into balance? Can you accept a sense of imperfection and then use it as a source of growth? And when we model that to our children and to anyone else who meets us, we also model a way of inhabiting life. We're not perfect individuals. Can we develop the confidence to be imperfect and use that as a way of, again, informing us about the teaching and understanding how to come back into balance? And if your daughter sees you doing that, she will also learn how to do that for herself.
Truly.
Because it's a felt thing rather than a verbal thing. It's a teaching that is felt and experienced rather than one that is sort of taught by words or rules or rites.
Truly. Truly. Really,
So,
even Sister
yep.
came up when we had a discussion regarding Sachi. Sister Kema also told that Sachi is a blessing. Blessing to us. We are happily taking care, and today we are able to face the situation, like we are able to maintain the harmony because of the practice which we had with Dhamma and 6 hours particularly, which is helping us in making in harmony.
And when it doesn't quite work, then you can feel the resistance and tension within you. But what that's doing then is also identifying where you have attachments and aversions, you know, wanting things to be a particular way, not wanting them to be another way. And that's revealing the tanha and the upadana, the craving and the clinging within yourself. So that in itself is something that then gets revealed, and then you can siksar and you can work with that, and you can work with forgiveness. And this process then enables, as it were, the heart to expand. And so we can go through all of life working with the forgiveness. You know, whenever we notice tension arise, part of the 6R process is like a forgiving ourselves for the tension being there and coming back. And when we allow that to be part of our process, then we're developing the loving kindness, the metta towards ourselves, and the compassion towards ourselves, which also links us into how this is the same for other people. And so by being compassionate and kind to ourselves, we also begin to connect in to how this is a universal condition for people. And that's when our compassion becomes more widespread and more open and more universal.
Really, my baby is laughing. He's laughing.
Hello.
Sachi
To see
is
you.
laughing. He's laughing while we were discussing.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay.
Yes. Thank
Well,
you, Hook.
thank you, Sachin, and thank you, Sindhu, for joining today.
Yes.
And for your contribution.
Yes. Thank you to you too.
Okay. Should we close with a closing prayer?
You can share the minutes. Yes.
May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings
share this.
thus acquired the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas of mighty power, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Goodbye now.
Bye bye.